So drum solos are fun for some drummers and a nightmare for some other drummers. And if you fall into the category of drummers that get nervous when there's time for a drum solo, or maybe you've never taken a drum solo because you feel like you don't have the necessary skills, today's video is for you. And I'm assuring you that by the end of this video, if you put everything I was saying in this video to work, you'll be able to do tasty and really insane drum solos. And the first thing you need to know is, what is a drum solo? This definition is going to help you take your mind towards the direction of what we're trying to achieve. A drum solo is simply a portion or a segment of the music where the drums are allowed to shine, or where the entire music becomes all about the drums. And drum solos must not only occur when there's music. There are occasions where drummers just, go for drum events where they do drum solos. And you'll notice that during drum solos, drummers always tend to play very impressive stuffs, technical stuffs, and all of that, just to show how skillful they are. But if I was asked to define drum solos, I'll always use a particular word to describe drum solos. I'll just tell you drum solos is expression. So anything that has to do with solos generally is expression. And you can only express what you have. So the technicalities, the grooves, the chops, whatever thing you're going to play during a drum solo is an expression of what you already have inside. So just before I demonstrate a few things on the kits, I would share a few tips and tricks that I use during drum solos. One of the most important things that I think helps a lot is this first one. Don't start your drum solos big, particularly if you're not an expert at drum solos yet. And you know what I mean? Don't start your drum solos with playing all the crazy things you can think of. You understand? Start off like a car that is accelerating. Start off gradually. Then you push up. And what you do is try not to just stay up there. Do you understand? When you get to the point where you're now playing impressive stuff, don't just stay there. You're telling a story, you're expressing. So you must not keep playing crazy things around the kids. Nah, it doesn't make any sense if you keep doing that throughout the whole solo. Do you understand? And one other thing you should know is you must not play fast during drum solos. Yes. But this is the thing here. Not playing fast applies most times when you don't have the skill of being able to play fast. Because fast is a skill that can actually bring the wow advantage. And when you're doing a drum solo, you need that wow advantage where you get people to be wowed and all of that. Do you understand? But if you're not very good at playing things fast, you can do a very tasty drum solo without playing fast stops. Do you get? So I'm going to do a quick demonstration of what a drum solo can, look like. Just a short few seconds of drum solo. And then I'll show you how you can get to that point and even create your own drum solos. So if you watch what I did there carefully, I didn't just stick to one thing. I started with boss rolls on the snare drum. Then I went to the single paradiddle, played a couple of notes. Then I went back and played the single paradiddle again, played a groove. I went through different things. There at some point I went through having my, stomping on my hi-hat and did some, what I call a sextuplet around the kit. Do you understand? So this is something I'm going to advise. Whenever you're doing drum solos, try not to just stick to one particular thing and keep repeating one thing over and over and over. You get, as I said, this expression. So let's get into understanding all those things now. So the first thing we're going to be learning now is how to keep a solo going with just a groove. So what you can always do is you must not stop. The idea that most people have about solos is when you start soloing, you must stop grooving and start going crazy around the kit. You can have a groove going. In fact, I think that's one of the best ways to solo, because your solo has pulse and people are still enjoying a groove. Do you understand? Now, whenever you do those crazy stuff, you wows them and then you get back into the groove. So we can have a groove, but what we do is we put in subtle, embellishments in the groove. We can do subtle things like changing the time signature and all of that. So I will show you an example of what that can be like. So I don't know if you saw what I was doing there. If you could listen, there was still a groove underneath it. But I was just, at this point, I was playing chops. Now, if you can't do all of that, as small as just doing things from between your hi-hat and your stack cymbal, small things like. So if you watch carefully, what I did there were just what we call software embellishments. You get where you add few things, and most of these embellishments are things that you do with your rudiment. Like what I was doing between my hi-hat and my stack cymbal here was a 6-stroke roll. You know the 6-stroke roll. So it's so you see, so small licks. One other thing you can do in these places, you can utilize spaces. And I like this ideology of music or soloing as conversations. Whenever you are doing solos, view it as having a conversation. And every conversation where there is just speeches going throughout doesn't make any sense. So at some point, you can just have some pauses. Let's try the same kind of groove. So you can imagine you're doing this solo in front of a crowd. When that happens, everybody's like, even someone that was not paying attention is going to like, what just happened? And then you come back. Do you understand? So it creates a bit of suspense in your solo. It makes it look more like you're telling a story. Do you understand? And one other thing you can do, if you're familiar with the 2 very easy time signatures to play around, you can very easily go from 4/4 to 6/8. You get? So you can just be playing a normal groove like the same groove. I'm going to stick with this groove. So you see how that sounded? I tried to infuse everything I spoke about earlier. The first embellishment, a little bit of spacing, and then switching to a time signature that is not regular. You can do it with any other time signature. You can try doing 5/4 and other ones, but they might be complex, and if you're not used to them, they can throw you off. Do you understand? So one thing I love to do a lot, and I think the first time I did a video on drum solos, I did this, is I think I've been doing it even while I was playing all the things I was playing. Is a style of solo where you just keep your 2 and 4 on the snare. Do you understand? So it's still in the concept of groovy kind of solos. We'll still get to the point where, playing crazy things around the kit. But for a groovy kind of solo, one thing you can always do is to keep your snare constant on the 2 and the 4. What do I mean? So a normal groove always has 1, 2, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you get? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So did you notice? I was doing all the things, but if you check very well, it was on 2 and 4. What I was doing there, let me even give you a free breakdown. It's very easy. So we have a normal swung funk groove going on. So it's a funk groove, but it's kind of swung. So So you see what I did there? Just kept 2 and 4 going constantly. And this helps a lot in groovy solos like this. I think someone that does a lot, someone like Lionel Lewis, he can literally keep doing a drum solo. And even while soloing, you can be dancing to the solos. But there are points of the solos where you have to now play crazy things. So now when you want to do the kind of solos where you're not just using grooves, you want to actually play crazy stuffs. And our advice, I'll be very honest with you, this should come in, occasionally in your solos. Do you get? Let people, groove more, and then you show them the crazy stuff, and then you find your way back into a groove. So one thing I'll tell you the truth here is, Rudiments are necessary here. Rudiments and patterns. Do you understand? So one thing you can easily do, pick a random rudiment. So you have to have knowledge of rudiments, single strokes, double strokes, six-stroke roll, any one at all. So I'm going to do something now. I'm going to go through a list of rudiments. I'll make sure I don't go outside these rudiments. Everything I'm going to play now is going to be some patterns and rudiments. And I will let you know what everything were when I'm done. So if you listen to what I just did now, I had no more than 5 patterns in what I did. I started with a very simple pattern. Right, left, kick. That was all I did the first time. So I was in. Then I went to 6-stroke roll, but I messed with the 6-stroke roll a little bit. So it's an inversion that a lot of drummers play. So 6-stroke roll is, but I put in my kick somewhere. So it was now. So what I did there. Then I went to inverted paradiddles. Then I also went to a pattern, a random pattern that just came to my mind. So I know I've showed you all the rudiments and everything I use now, but one of the worst things you would do in a drum solo is to just pick what I just did now and go and play it. You sound very, very mechanized. It would look like you crammed what you wanted to play and just come out and you're playing it. So that's why I say drum solo is expression. Do you understand? So if I was to do a drum solo with all those things, I will not just come out and be playing that. You would hear some 2 things in between. I can do the same thing. Do you understand? So if you're playing a particular thing, it would look, if you just keep playing from this rudiment to the other rudiment to this rudiment, it would look like you're just scoring a particular thing and giving it out like that. So an instance where you can take a rudiment, I'll give you a short instance now. You can pick something like the single paradiddle, in as much as it sounds very ordinary on its own. You can play it as something that sounds like a groove. Do you understand? And let's do something like this. As ordinary as that sounds, now I'll add some other components to it and you see how it becomes a groove. Don't forget it's the same single paradiddle. So you see what I just did with the rudiment there. So what you need to do, I think I've made a video on flows and so many of all these topics related to this. It's easy to play rudiments, it's easy to do so many things with it. But when it comes to musically blending them together, going from the single stroke roll to a 6-stroke roll to a paradiddle without sounding mechanized, you have to sit down, practice, find the best ways to switch. Find the best ways to go from you understand? So you pick up a practice pad and just do all of that before an opportunity for a solo comes. So you stop getting nervous. Do you understand? And don't forget the first thing I said. Don't try to start big. When you start big, most times you're under the urge to impress. And when that's, all those energy you're feeling in the beginning goes away, when you've given them the best you have at the beginning, what happens towards the end? So whenever you're doing a drum solo, take all these things into place. If you want me to keep sharing more tips about drum solos like this, just drop a comment stating so, and I'll keep dropping more videos about drum solos. Let me know if this video was helpful in the comment section also, and I will see you guys in the very next video. Peace.